Welcome to the Leadership Buzz with Lloyd Buzz Buzzell, an International Coaching Federation credentialed coach, DISC practitioner, and retired Air Force officer with 37 years of leadership experience. This podcast is for leaders who want to align behavior with values and grow in self-awareness. And each episode features one book, one idea, one story, and 3 coaching questions to help you reflect on your leadership. Work hard. Tell the truth. Here's Buzz. Let's roll.
Hey, welcome back to the Leadership Buzz. I'm particularly excited about this book and this episode, What Do You Care What Other People Think? And it's from Richard Feynman, which we'll talk about here in just a second. It's broke up into 2 parts. One is kind of some loosely based stories, and the second part is Mr. Feynman goes to Washington, and it's a lot about the Rogers Committee and the Challenger disaster. It's a very interesting book. It's not long. You can read it very quickly, and I definitely recommend this one. His decade-long battle against cancer ended in 1988. That was 2 weeks after he taught his last class at Caltech. And I think you'll find this story interesting, and I'm looking forward to sharing it.
Welcome back to the Leadership Buzz. Today, Buzz takes us inside Richard Feynman's book, What Do You Care What Other People Think? Feynman was a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, a brilliant thinker, and someone who believed that curiosity and honesty mattered more than looking smart. From lessons learned from his father, to his relationship with his wife Arlene, to his unforgettable role investigating the Challenger disaster, Feynman reminds us of a simple but challenging idea. Reality does not care about our titles, our opinions, or our reputations. For leaders, that raises an important question. Are we building organizations where people search for the truth or protect the story? Today, Buzz explores why the courage to ask questions, challenge assumptions, and face reality may be one of the greatest leadership skills we can develop.
Hey, welcome back to the Leadership Buzz. This is where we take that one book, an idea, a story, and explore where it means for us and how we lead and how we show up every day. This Richard Feynman's book, What Do You Care What Other People Think? It's a short book. It's interesting. I totally recommend it. Now, when people hear his name, they will often think of physicist, Nobel Prize winner, genius. And yeah, he was all those. But what draws me to Feynman is not just how smart he was, it was how he thought. Feynman had this incredible combination that I believe every leader could use. A relentless commitment to finding the truth, combined with the humility to admit what he did not know. And that combination is rare, because sometimes leaders get those backwards. And in his book, it illustrates how he definitely showed humility in several situations and didn't care about titles or where he sat or what room he was given. And he just detested that sort of favoritism for him and other leaders. But we feel pressure to always have the answer, to be the expert. Walk in the room with confidence, to let people see uncertainty. And Feynman lived it differently. He believed curiosity was not a weakness. He believed saying, I don't know, was not a failure, and that the goal was not to look smart. The goal was to understand. One of my favorite lessons from Feynman came from his father. His father taught him that knowing the name of something is not the same as understanding something. You could know the name of a bird in multiple languages. You could memorize the facts. You could impress people with what you know. But that does not mean you understand the bird. And I think that in leadership, because sometimes we learn the names of leadership, culture, trust, accountability, values, teamwork. But Feynman might stop us and ask, do you really understand those things? What's behind that? I don't mean the definition, and not the poster or the bumper sticker, not the words in the strategic plan, the reality. A leader might say, we value honesty, where Feynman would ask, when was the last time someone told you something you didn't want to hear? Because that is the experience or the experiment, and that is the evidence. We say, my door is always open. We talked about this in a previous episode, but do people actually walk through it? And when they do, what do they say? We say, I want feedback, but what happens when feedback arrives? I empower my team. But do we allow people to make decisions differently than we would and then accept the consequences and accept what we get? Feynman would not be interested in the title leader, commander, executive, coach. Those are just names. He would want to understand the behavior. He would want the evidence. And that can be uncomfortable for many, and uncomfortable even in my past, it has been at times, because sometimes the evidence challenges the story we have created about ourselves. One of the hardest leadership lessons is realizing my intention and my impact are not always the same thing. We all aspire to be something, but are we that? I may intend to listen, intend to be approachable, to create trust. But leadership is experienced by others, not by what we think. The question is not, what kind of leader do you think I am? The better question is, what is it like to be led by me? That feels like a Feynman question. Simple, direct, maybe a little uncomfortable, and probably exactly where learning begins. The bigger idea behind this book is scientific integrity. He believed the easiest person to fool is yourself. That is powerful because leadership creates endless opportunities for self-deception. We tell ourselves stories. My team would tell me if something's wrong. Would they? As a leader, sometimes you're the funniest, best looking, and smartest person in the room until you realize that maybe people are just telling you that or making you feel that way. Does my organization value transparency? Does it? People know they can challenge me, or do they? Some leaders say that, and everybody knows that's not true. Feynman pushed himself and others away from what they hoped was true and toward what the evidence showed. And this leads us to one of the most important stories of Feynman's life, the investigation of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. On January 28, 1986, Challenger broke apart shortly after launch. 7 astronauts lost their lives. Afterwards, Feynman was asked to serve on the commission investigating what happened, the Rogers Commission. And what I love about Feynman's approach was that he did not just rely on titles, briefings, or official explanations. He wanted reality, truth. He wanted to talk to the engineers. He asked questions and looked for understanding. He wanted to dive into the details, not just get a nice hotel room in Washington, D.C., and have nice tours and go out to dinner and take days off. He wanted to get something done. Eventually, the investigation focused on the O-rings, these small seals in the solid rocket boosters. There were concerns about how they performed in cold temperatures. During a public hearing, Feynman did something unforgettable. He took a sample of the O-ring material, compressed it, placed it in water, and demonstrated that cold temperatures affected its ability to return it to its original shape. The kind of funny part of the story was that there was always ice water on the tables, and during that morning when he was trying to do this experiment without telling anybody about it ahead of time, there was no ice in the water. So he had to ask for ice water. Well, it took an extremely long period of time, and when they finally brought it out, they brought it out for everybody on the panel. So he grabbed one right at the end and did this exhibition experiment in front of everybody. But that simple experiment revealed a complicated truth. And I think there's a lesson there. Sometimes the truth is not hidden because it's complicated. Sometimes the truth is hidden because we stop asking simple questions. This happens inside organizations all the time. Information exists and someone knows. The person closest to the work usually knows. That technician, the frontline employee knows. The newest person in the room might see something everyone else has stopped noticing. But somewhere between the person who knows the truth and the person making the decision, the message changes. It gets softened, filtered, made safer. The leader hears we have some concerns when the reality might be we need to stop. The Challenger shuttle investigation reminds us that smart people and good people can still create systems where truth struggles to surface. And that matters because when we look back at our failures, it is easy to say, how did they miss that? But the harder leadership question is, if I were in that same environment under that same pressure, what might I have missed? The question requires humility, and humility creates learning. When was the last time that you challenged yourself to learn something that you didn't know beforehand and that you might have missed in the past due to not lack of humility? Every organization has pressure. Every organization has those deadlines, and they have competing priorities. The question is not whether that exists. The question is, what happens to truth when pressure increases? Does curiosity increase or decrease? Does honesty increase or decrease? Or do people just quietly start protecting the plan and make it easier to kind of move along? Great leaders pay attention to weak signals. That small concern, quiet hesitation, the person might say, I know everyone else agrees, but I see this differently. That person might be protecting your organization, but only if they believe speaking up is worth the risk. I spent decades in the nuclear enterprise where the stakes were high. One thing I learned is that mission depended on people willing to speak the truth. Rank did not change reality. Physics doesn't care about your position. The system either worked or didn't. The facts were the facts. And leadership was about creating an environment where those facts surface. The best teams I worked with were not perfect teams. They were honest, they challenged assumptions, and they surfaced problems early that we could deal with. They trusted each other enough to say, I think we need to take another look at this again. And sometimes the most uncomfortable conversation was the conversation that protected the mission. That connects directly to the title, What Do You Care What Other People Think? At first, that title can almost sound arrogant. Like Feynman is saying, ignore everyone, don't listen, just do whatever you want. But I don't think that was his message. He listened deeply. He listened to the evidence, to the experiments, to the people closest to the work. That's where he took pride. What he refused to listen to was the pressure to pretend, to conform, to go along, the pressure to protect an image instead of pursuing what was true. And that is a leadership challenge, because as we grow, as leaders grow, the pressure does change as we move up. Earlier in our careers, we are rewarded for knowing, have the answer, solve the problem, be the expert, the technical expert. But eventually, leadership changes. The job becomes less about having every answer and more about creating an environment where the answer can be discovered. As a young officer, it's about learning your craft and being an expert in your field. Later on, it's about collaboration and understanding what changes and what to listen to and who to listen to. That real humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is being more committed to learning than protecting. It is being able to say, I don't know, I was wrong, help me understand. Those words do not reduce credibility. Often they increase it. Because people do not need leaders who pretend to be perfect. They need leaders committed to reality. Maybe the greatest danger for experienced leaders is not what we don't know. It's what we are certain we already know. Feynman kept that door open for curiosity. A Nobel Prize winner who still asked basic questions. A genius who still wanted simple explanations. He was a scientist who cared less about looking smart and more about discovering what was true. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. Stay curious, challenge assumptions, listen to the people closest to the work. Don't protect the appearance of success at the expense of learning. Leadership is not about proving we're right. Leadership is about discovering what is right. Here at the Leadership Buzz, we often come back to a simple idea. Work hard, tell the truth. Richard Feynman lived that. He cared enough to tell the truth even when truth was uncomfortable. And maybe that's a pretty good definition of leadership.
Coach Buzz, can you give us this week's 3 coaching questions for our listeners?
Hey, for this week's 3 coaching questions, where in your leadership or life are you spending energy trying to meet others' expectations instead of being true to what you believe? In the curiosity learning area, what assumption, rule, or we've always done it this way belief do you need to challenge with genuine curiosity, either individually or with your team? And in the courage and truth arena, what truth do you already know but have been hesitant to say out loud?
As we close today's episode, Richard Feynman's What Do You Care? What other people think leaves us with a powerful reminder. The truth does not change because of our position, confidence, or reputation. Feynman showed us that curiosity is not just a scientific skill, it is a leadership skill. The best leaders create space for questions, invite disagreement, and have the humility to admit when they might be wrong. Whether it is a space shuttle, a business decision, or a conversation with your team, the warning signs are often there. The real question is whether we are willing to see them and listen. So this week, ask yourself, am I trying to prove I am right, or am I trying to discover what is true? Remember, work hard, tell the truth. Over to you, Buzz.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Buzz. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you have a moment, leave a rating or review. That helps other leaders discover the show. If these kinds of leadership questions resonate with you and you'd like to explore them more deeply, feel free to reach out to me. Coaching conversations often start exactly this way. Until next time, work hard, tell the truth.